Good morning, Dr. Jim. All right. Well, I have the wonderful pleasure of being able to share with you the third part, which is what it does. But I thought it might be interesting because we have been in and out for the holidays that I'll kind of read you a little bit about what Maggie shared and what Reverend Maggie and Reverend Patrick shared. The first one is the thing itself, and this is just a little synopsis of it. We all look forward to the day when science and religion shall walk hand in hand through the visible to the invisible. Science knows nothing of opinion, but recognizes a government of law whose principles are universal. Yet any scientist who refuses to accept intangible values has no adequate basis for the values which he has already discovered. Revelation must keep faith with reason, religion with law, while intuition is ever spreading its wings for greater flights, and science must justify faith in the invisible. And that's Ernest Holmes. And Reverend Maggie went over lots of things about that 2 weeks ago. And then Reverend Patrick started out with the way it works. And a little synopsis on that is the science of mind is not a special revelation of any individual. It is rather the culmination of all revelations. We take the good wherever we find it, making it our own insofar as we understand it. The realization that God is universal and that as much good as an individual is able to incorporate in his life is his to use, is what constitutes the science of mind and spirit. So the first two were the man must make the greatest discovery for himself. There isn't anyone or anything that can do it for him. The second chapter was talking about the essence of the whole teaching. And I'm going to share with you what it contains or what it does. So this morning, Ernest Holmes tells us we are immersed in an infinite intelligence, a mind that knows all things. It is also true that this intelligence can acquaint us with its ideas only as we are able and willing to receive them. So we have a whole textbook here. And if you don't have a textbook, it might be fun to have one on your shelf where you can refer to it. This is an older one. But there's multitudes and multitudes of ideas in this textbook, as there is multitude and multitude of ideas everywhere. It isn't anything that is not known, because it's all known in mind. So what our job is to be able to open up to receive those different ideas and those different things. Have you ever had the opportunity where you came up with an idea and you thought, man, this is great. I'm going to take this idea and I'm going to run with it for all that it's worth. You ever done that? Oh, yeah. How many have millions of dollars? Yeah. Yeah. We all come up with these different ideas, and there's nothing wrong with not stepping into it and seeing it to the end. It's simply the fact that you received this idea, you did something with it at the moment, and then you let it go. Because you know what that does? It gives someone else an opportunity to catch that same idea and expand on it to make it even greater. I got to have that wonderful idea when my first daughter was a baby, and I don't know if anybody has ever watched a baby in a car seat, and they're like this. They're very uncomfortable. And you think, oh my God, I got to fix that. That's terrible. Poor baby's all scrunched over, and how can they be comfortable? So I took a receiving blanket and I made it into a horseshoe. And I stuck it in some fabric and put it around her head, and she was quite comfortable. Really, I was comfortable. She was probably fine. But Mommy was more comfortable with the head, kind of straight up and down. So that's great. Well, I don't know, 10, 15 years later, guess what? It's on the market. And you can buy it now. So it was an idea that came to me. I used it. Brandy didn't need it anymore, so I let it go. So when we come up with things, when we're alert or aware to what the universe has to offer, we can play with it. Doesn't mean we have to keep it. It simply means that it's going to enrich our life for however long that idea sits with it. And the cool thing about that is that we can only take into our consciousness what we can accept. So how many people run out and buy lottery tickets? Yeah, well, you can't win unless you go buy one. That's really important, You can concentrate, you can do spiritual mind treatment, you can do all those things, but if you don't run out and buy a ticket, it's still out there for you, but you have to take some action. So with the idea that you have to do something, but if everybody that bought a ticket and won the lottery, can you imagine the chaos that would create? And you find, if you listen to the reports and everything else and all the surveys that go with people that did win and how quickly the money went through their hands and things like that. Well, at that one moment in time, that lottery ticket was their prosperity consciousness, and that was 100% because they won. But what they did with it was something else too. It went wherever they wanted it to go, quickly or slowly, but were they enriched by it, and did it make a difference for them in the long term? Which is where we come to the place of recognizing that if everything we wanted was spilled upon us and just absorbed into us, we wouldn't know what to do. We wouldn't have any basis for which way to move and which way to go so that we can make use and benefit from what it is we've received. So one of the ways in which we begin to recognize the infinite power that we have within us is to know God. It's been said that in order to know God, you must become God. And of course, that's taken in the literal sense, because what we become is we become the attributes of what God is in the expression of that. And those are 7 that we work with is love, light, peace, beauty, joy, power, and life. Those are the attributes that we have that is the essence of God. So when we take ownership of those, we are able to become an open and receiving of all that what God has to offer, or spirit, or mind, or whatever words you happen to use. Okay, that comes into that place. One of the things about the universal intelligence or infinite intelligence or God or spirit or whatever you want to label it as is that the universe is impersonal. It gives to all alike. It's no respecter of persons, and it values everything the same. So when we get to a place where we walk around and we poo-poo and feel bad and think, well, I don't have this, and he has that, and he has that, and I don't have this, and all this other kind of how come, and poor me, or poor situation, or poor circumstances, it isn't because it's not available. It's simply because we haven't been open to receive that particular part, that particular gift that we appear to be lacking. And it's an appearance of what we appear to be lacking. So what our job is to be receptive, to be in the receiving end of it. Ralph Waldo Emerson said that we get our bloated nothingness out of the way of the divine circuits. When we did the meditation, we were talking about the hills and valleys and the shadows. The shadow that crosses our pathway of experience is when we allow ourselves that moment of doubt, that moment of frustration, that moment of lack. When we hit those areas, that's the shadows that come up across our pathway, which appears to block whatever it is that we want, the good that we want to have in our life. It appears that it blocks it. Again, it's just appearances. It doesn't really. It simply is a shadow, and the shadows are created by our thoughts. And our thoughts create our experiences. So it's kind of like that little circle. So once we end up recognizing that we can, if we choose, to be able to move that out of the way. The valley can be short or the valley can be really deep. You can go down the valley and it can be like this, and you can stop in the middle and buy a condo and live there for a little while if you choose. But then it's really fun to find somebody that's going to buy it from you. That takes a little bit of time. So once you get that sold, you can go on and move forward and get up over the hill. So the idea is to allow ourselves that we live in a world that's simplistic, even though when you listen to the news, you read stories, you read papers, magazines, you talk to friends and stuff, it sounds very complex. It sounds like it's a woven spider web, that's got so many levels and so many different angles and things to it. So we have to be able to know that we can simplify it and do it quietly. I have an experience that I got to share, I shared it with a whole heck of a lot of people, is that my flight to go to Colorado was supposed to be the day after day after Christmas, and I ended up leaving the 23rd. I got a 6:40 a.m. flight, figuring, cool, I'll get there before all the crazy traffic and stuff gets there. I was in such delusion. I got there at like 5:30, about 5 o'clock I got there. And I went Southwest, so they dropped me off right in the very front. And there was this, and I'm no kidding, there was this line. If anybody goes to the LAX, there's like 3 airlines in this one block, right? And as soon as you got off the bus, this line went all the way to the end of that. And I thought, whoa, I'm sure glad I checked in early. I'm sure glad I got my boarding pass. So I get my luggage, and I go all the way inside. And I said, I have my boarding. She says, yes, you have to go get at the end of that line. I said, you are joking. You are kidding. She goes, no, ma'am, the end of that line. So went all the way back out and got in the end of the line. And of course, I'm looking at my watch and I'm going, I have a 6:40 flight. It's now 5:30. I'm never going to get to the end of that line. Hear all that stuff coming in? All that race consciousness that was visiting me. Or I invited. It came to visit because I invited it. And so as you're standing in line, you're hearing the same story from everybody else in line. It's not my fault that this line is that long. I'm just part of it. I'm in that line. Had you not got a boarding pass and not checked in early, the line was really short. What does that teach us? Don't fly before the holidays. But so it was that big long line. So then I would, as you listen to all this stuff, you start taking it in, you get agitated, and you start complaining. It's not my fault, it's so-and-so's fault, and what's the matter with these airlines, and all that stuff. You throw all that in. So after I moved about, I don't know, maybe a block, I decided, okay, Susan, let's stop this nonsense. You are probably going to miss your flight, and that's okay, because there's lots of other flights after it. So instead of panicking and trying to text my daughter to tell me to call the airlines and see what I was supposed to do, I figured, okay, I'll just wait in line and not get fussed about it and just listen and treat to know that everybody gets where they need to go at the perfect and right time, including me. So I went through the line and got there, and I said, I missed my flight. They said, go that way to another line. Okay. So then I went through that line, and I got a flight at 9 o'clock, waited, and it was fine. I got there. I got to be where I needed to be, which with my daughter. And but it was that going from the complex ideas that everything is like, it's just not working the way I want it to work. And I discovered in my time to breathe and resting and saying, okay, it's all right, that I'll get where I need to go in the perfect right time, that I didn't have to stress and I didn't have to get all excited and everything else. So what I did was allow myself to go back to the simple and quiet process. And a lot of times it takes us a while to get there, but once we do, it gets easier to be able to allow the universe to move you along where you need to be. And Dr. Ernest Holmes says, he said, it is the nature of the universe to give us what we are able to take. I obviously was not ready to take that flight at 6:40 in the morning. It cannot give us more. It is all given already. We have not yet accepted the greater gift. The greater gift at that moment in time when I decided I'd had enough of this, I wasn't going to listen anymore, and I was just going to be calm and quiet and allow myself to be where I needed to be. Spiritual wisdom says that God manifests through everything and is incarnate in all men. There was a lot of men at the airport, and I don't mean just male men. That all is divinity and that the nature itself is the body of God. So instead of getting panicky, I began to look at God all around me. Thinking about the people that go, oh, yes, they're going to go and they're going to visit their relatives. They're going to have a great flight. They're going to be able to spend the holidays where they want to spend them. And that kind of thing. Start basking in the joy and the simplicity of what it was, instead of looking at the complex part of it that seemed very disruptive and chaotic. The mechanical laws of nature are set and immutable. I was not going to move that line any faster. No matter what I thought, it was not going to move any faster. That's part of the law. The law was a representation of all those people in line wanting to get where they wanted to get, and you couldn't move them any faster than they were moving by complaining. But the spontaneous recognition of these laws gives us the power to bring them into practical use in everyday life and experience. So I decided I would rather have that kind of an experience than the one that I was hearing all around me. So that's one of the things it does, if we're open and receptive to that. The other one is all is love, and yet all is law. Love rules through law. Law is the divine givingness, or love is the divine givingness, and law is the way in which it happens. There are two pitfalls that we can run into in the recognition of this principle. Is life is made up of mechanical laws, and we just live by those laws. So we place ourselves in a limited situation where we don't allow ourselves the possibility of thinking it's limitless with just mechanical laws. So life is only made up of spontaneous actions. How many are spontaneous people in this room? Yeah, lots of spontaneous people, right? And all those people out in live stream, lots of spontaneous people. Spontaneity is absolutely wonderful and heavenly. But you know what? Sometimes law creeps in and says, no, we're going to stop this. Watch a 3-year-old play. Then I got the opportunity to play with my 3-year-old grandson while we were waiting for the birth of the other one. And the ways in which they allow spontaneity just to simply flow out of them. And that when they've hit a place where they have to recognize that they have to work with the law, and guess who the law is? Mom, dad, grandma, all those other little things. Those are the things that the law throws up and says, hey, you have to work with us. You can't work against us. Because when you work against us, it squishes the spontaneity. And pretty soon you fall back into that thing, okay, I'm going to live just like this. Just the little law right here. Walk, 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 that little path. And not be able to spread it out to the infinite possibilities that it is when we simply go by, you get your finger burned on the stove and you never want to touch a stove again. Of course, then you may not eat. Then other things happen. So those are the things that we have to balance. And those are the things that we get to recognize. That's another one of the things that it does. It gives us all opportunities to experience that. Now, we talked a little bit about the shadow that comes across our pathway. If we get the opportunity to have so much stuff fall into our laps all at the same time. And no matter how much we're ready for that, there's no place for it to seep, no place for it to go. It just sits there. And what's the famous word everybody uses? I'm overwhelmed. And that's part of it. You get overwhelmed, and then you don't move at all. So you don't get to use any of those gifts that have been given to you. You can't use them because you just don't know where to move or act or react. So that's some of the things. And again, you go back to that simplicity and quiet. Love points the way, and law makes it possible. So it's paying attention to what the law is, understanding it, and then being able to use it and put it into practice. So we go into discovery. That's another part of what it does. It gives us the opportunity to discover what it, capital I, is. It can be love, spirit, intelligence, divine wisdom, anything that you have a deep connection with. Because words are important, because words create feelings, and the feelings create our experiences and our thoughts. So it's important to be able to find something, or find a word, or find a connection that works for you. Because not everybody feels the same way about different words that describe something, especially something so invisible as God. And there are some people that God doesn't have any emotional attachment at all, but spirit might, light, love, joy, any of those things. That's all the discovery. That's all out there for us to discover. So once we discover that, we have an understanding. And when the understanding comes, then we have a way to put it to practice. So we have some of the other things that come to us is knowledge. How much knowledge do we have? I know we have doctors and nurses and people that are really technical and are great in those kinds of areas in their lives. And then there are those that, like me, it's like the first thing that I was asked this morning, do you have slides? No, I don't do that. It's not that I don't have a computer. It's not that I don't have PowerPoint. It's not any of that. I don't do it. And it's probably not because I'm not capable. It's just, I just haven't got my arms around that law to understand that I can sit down at the computer and I can create that. I haven't done that yet. So I read instead. So, which isn't bad either. But it's my way of understanding that, yes, I can do that if I choose, but right now I don't choose that. And it's okay. But that's a discovery I got to make, and that's a choice I got to make. And that's one of the things that it does. It gives us all of that freedom of discovery. Universal mind contains all knowledge, all possibilities. For it uses and gives to us all that we can conceive and all that we can use, only when we're receptive to it. If the receptivity isn't there, we wouldn't be able to do anything with it. Or it would just kind of sit in the computer, listed under PowerPoint, saying, yes, you can, but I choose no, I won't. It's not that I can't, it's because I won't. Big difference. All right. So the receiving and the understanding is the different things. And we all think out of the same mind, the same universal intelligence, all of that. We all think out of that area. And it would make you wonder, if we all think out of that same space, how come we're not all identical? How come we all don't think and feel and move and be the same? Why is that? Well, because God doesn't like boredom, for one thing. That would be very boring. Not real awe-inspiring. So we each have all of these gifts, all of these things there available for us to step into. But we all don't step in the same direction. We all don't step in that box of mechanical laws. We step into love creates limitless possibilities. So the scientist, the artist, the person that creates all this lovely technology that has PowerPoint in it, all these different things, it has all of that. And it's great that none of us do it exactly the same. We each have a potential, and that potential unfolds as we open up to receive, and when we're open to receive the gift and understand the laws that go with that, then we're able to do something with it. So it's great that we have that ability, because it could be really interesting for a person that's an artist, and they go, yeah, I have all this talent. So they put the easel up, they get the canvas, they put their paints out, they get their little canvas chair, and they sit. There's a gorgeous sunset, and they sit. Okay, sunset, appear. Guess what? You have to use the talent. You have to use the law. You have to use what it is that you received in order for that sunset to come through you. It doesn't just get dumped on you and there you are. It's not a set of clothes. It's something you get the wonderful opportunity to create through your individuality, through your acceptance of whatever gift that is, whether it's writing, reading, there's just a multitude. So we allow ourselves the freedom to know that whatever happens to come through us and the creativity that falls from that is our gift. And not anybody else is going to do it the same way. No one is. Not even identical twins. And we have several of those in our family. They don't do it the same way. They're so totally different, even though they look absolutely identical. They're just totally different people. So that's what it does. It gives us those opportunities to be able to do that. One of the great opportunities that it gives us is it gives us the ideas and the ways in which we can create those spaces when we get stuck, those shadows that come over our path. And that's called spiritual mind treatment. And these are the tools that Dr. Jim and Reverend Maggie talked about this morning. These are the tools that we have. This is the other thing that it does. It says yes. It never says no. It says yes through you. It doesn't send you an invitation on a little silver plaque and knock on your door and say, here, it's yours. And you have this complexity that's sitting in front of you. How can I use that gift? I don't have any clarity. I don't know what to do with it. Well, spiritual mind treatment is one of those ways in which we're able to step into making that difference, to making that a place where we move from that complexity and stuff to that simplicity. So the simplicity gives us a place to demonstrate our desires. I'm sure everybody in here has had an opportunity to demonstrate something in their life, right? It's going like this, yes. Yeah. Almost everybody, even if you were unaware of the fact that you were doing it. It happens. When we get an idea, we have a desire, then we get a picture in our mind of what that looks like, what that desire or that good looks like in our life. And then once we do that, we get concrete ideas. We have concrete things that we can work from because we're open and we're receptive to that. And once we do that, then we go, okay, great. And I actually feel that like the artist that has the empty canvas and sees the sunset. Okay, I'm going to take that through me and it's going to just spill onto the canvas. Because there's a concrete idea that helps that evolve. And they actually took the action steps of moving into it and becoming that picture by doing the painting. And they go by faith. The faith is what gives them the desire and the form to step forward and create that painting in anything that we do. And it doesn't have to just be a painting, it can just be anything, any idea that we happen to have. And those are actually the steps of treatment. Those are the things that we create through our conscious thought that moves us into that. And then, of course, we have that wonderful thing that there's that positive thinking and that negative thinking. And when we get in a place where we feel a lot of that negative energy, then we can clear that, as I did at the airport. I said, oh, okay, I'm tired of being this way. Do something different. Creating another space within myself. It didn't matter what anybody else around me thought or felt. It was what I thought and I felt. And whether it made a difference for them, I don't know. But it did for me, and that was the important part, that I was able to do that. We create molds all the time with our ideas. And all we have to do is create the mold. Infinite intelligence already has the substance that needs to fill it. We just simply create it. We create the idea, we create the mold, and through our actions and our awareness is what that substance fills it with. And it creates that space for us to have what it is we desire. Sometimes it doesn't happen overnight, but sometimes it can happen in 5 minutes. Have you ever got rid of a cold in 5 minutes? I've never experienced it. My husband did. He was really sick with a cold and went into the bathroom and he said, I'll be out in a while. And okay. And probably half hour later he came out and he says, oh, I feel so much better. Let's go. I said, where are we going? He said, well, we're just going to go out to dinner and stuff. I said, but you were feeling miserable. Not anymore. I said, wow, good for you. I haven't been able to get rid of a cold like that. But he did that. That was cool for him. I couldn't do it, but at that point in time I couldn't. But he did, so that was really great. So one of the things to remember is a trained mind is more powerful than an untrained mind. The more we work with our thought process and our consciousness, the greater degree we have of moving through things that appear to be obstacles. We simply allow that to be through practice. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a lot of practice. Someone asked me, someone came to visit during I guess it was like Thursday, and she walked in and she asked me to show her the center, and I did, and she said, oh, it's a beautiful sanctuary. I would enjoy sitting here. And I said, yes, there's wonderful things that happen here for us. It's a beautiful way. And then it becomes, the more you practice and the more you do treatment, spiritual mind treatment for yourself and prayer, and it's just be prayer. It doesn't have to be named any particular thing. But when you do that and you get into the practice of that, you know what? You're praying all the time. You're praying 24/7. You begin to see more and more of what the universe offers and the gifts that it gives. And it's a beautiful way to be in constant state of prayer. Years and years and years ago, I always thought, like, how in the world can you possibly have that happen? But it does. It happens with practice. That's one of the things it does. It always says yes to us. And where we put our consciousness is the yes that we get to experience. So that's one of the things. I'm going to restate the principles that Dr. Holmes was telling us about and what it does. And he says, we are surrounded by an infinite possibilities. It is the goodness, life, law, and reason. In expressing itself through us, it becomes more fully conscious of its own being. Therefore, it wishes to express through us. As it passes into our being, it automatically becomes the law of our lives. It can pass into expression through us, and as only we consciously allow it to do so. Therefore, we should have faith in it, its desires, its abilities to do for us all that we shall ever need and have to do. Since it must pass through our consciousness to operate for us, we must be conscious that it is doing so. So the whole idea of what it does is gives us the opportunity to receive what it wants to impart. And we get to choose whatever that is that we want. It's limited, totally unlimited possibilities that we are able to use on a continuous basis. And we're the ones that get to do that. We don't have to go to someone and say, my life looks like this, fix it. Hopefully that someone says, yes, you can fix it. Instead of saying, I'm going to fix it. Our wonderful practitioners are people that help us do that. When you get stuck or you can't see the forest for the trees or the valley is so deep you can't find or see a possible way out, then you go to one of our wonderful practitioners that we have here at the center, and you simply state where you are, or stuck, if that's a good word to use. Sometimes we're just stuck and that we can't see, and that they're able to listen and then do a spiritual mind treatment for us that helps awaken so many things in us as we are receptive and as we are open to hear and to receive. And then the biggest part of that is to take action on it. Because there's a little saying says, treat and move your feet. Well, if you just treat and you just kind of stand in one place, it doesn't go anywhere. It has to have action. Action is one of the important steps behind it. It's another one of the things that it does. It gives us desire, passion, and energy to move forward, that creative energy that comes from spiritual mind treatments and comes from any desires that we happen to have. Like I said in the very beginning, you can have lots of ideas, doesn't mean you have to act on them, but when you do, be willing to follow them through if you want to see a result or a success or whatever word you want to put to it at the end. Like my little head thing. If I'd done something else with that, but I wasn't meant to. I used the idea to my potential, and then I let it go. So it gets out there and is able to create even greater things. So those are also the thing it does, is those great possibilities that unfold day to day and moment to moment. And then next week, Dr. Jim gets to share with you how it works. So we know what it does. We know we had to set the discovery that we have to make for ourselves. No one can do it for us. And we know that it's the essence of the teaching and how we can change our lives by our thought process and the tools that we have. And now we know what it does for us, and it can only do it through us. So take the ideas, take the thoughts, and the things that you would like to demonstrate in your life. If you need assistance with getting clarity on that, what that demonstration might look like, be sure to visit one of our practitioners. And also visit the activities and things that we have here at the center that help move you along in that fashion too. So thank you very much for being here. Namaste to you and to our people in live stream.